Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Mask of the Rose. In the last episode, we managed to get Phoebe to confess to accidentally killing David. I mean, she kind of said she wanted him to stay down here, and she knew it wasn't going to kill him. And I'm wondering if we can change our story here to hand in to the police. But, let's see, her purpose was... I figured she had feelings for David, but that doesn't appear to be an option here. Maybe we don't have all the parts we need to actually be able to do this yet. We haven't spoke to David yet. There is a chance that he might tell us something we don't know. Told of impermanent murder. That Milton definitely told her of impermanent murder. Eldritch purpose kind of fits. So it's Phoebe's motives that we're actually struggling with here. I mean, I could go with made an honest mistake. It makes more sense than hope to end humiliation. Poison David is locked, can't change that. Wanted the murder to succeed. I mean, Milton kinda wanted to get rid of David, I feel. And then lied about everything. That seems to fit. So the only one that I'm not sure of here is Phoebe's motive. And the action of something else. I mean, she talked about trying to ask David to stay below. And that doesn't appear to be an option here, so let's save and exit. Let's go see if we can speak to David, but let's recall the past first. Maybe we'll find some interesting information here. I reach for another memory out of that jumbled grab bag. Theophilus and Horatio and their differences back then. Someone had come to ask Archie about the Christmas services. Theophilus? May I rely on you, then, to read the second lesson? Oh, if I must. But... the sacrifice of Isaac? No, that is to say... yes, that's the right lesson, but he isn't sacrificed in the end, of course. That, naturally, was the miracle. Let's go with... he's a little less condescending now. Maybe the day of bats has softened him. Always been more partial to the fourth lesson. But consider how the second lesson ends. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies. That's the verse I most dislike. Maybe he listened to her. I see. Give me a prophecy of peace rather than a prophecy of dominion. It's Archie. Who's to read it out? Okay, let's head outside and see what options we have. We have all the other side quests we haven't managed to do yet. But let's see if we can speak to David. Apparently we can do something at the Devil's Townhouse. Look to Virginia for help finding Milton's remains. Oh, of course, we need to find his body. Not really the path I want to go down, though. Let's go to the Landau's townhouse. And... get Phoebe to reveal whether she had motive to kill David. That seems kind of useful. Let's do that. Even though I feel she's already done this. And we're totally going in with the rat. You want to speak again? Just a moment. I wait while she finishes her chores enough to take a moment with me. Going back outside again? We are, okay. Can I ask you some more questions? You mind if I ask you a few questions about the murder? There are some things I don't understand. I don't think they want me to... David and Rachel, I mean. Is David answering your questions? Rachel is. I might as well then. She's like to say more about me than she knows. So I'd best be here to answer back. So, Phoebe, did you have any motives? Let's respond with protective kindness and see where this goes. It won't mean anything one way or another, but it's better if I know the truth. If it came to it, if someone were making an unkind case against you, is there any reason they would give for you to have wanted David dead? There's people that would say I had reason. That is, he'd done things that might have minded someone to be angry. If you read about it in a broadsheet and not in life as it is, so to speak. But I love him. When he talked of going back to the surface, I begged him to stay. I didn't want him hurt or gone or at the bottom of some nasty grave. When he died, you'd not believe the nightmares. Night on night of him down there scrabbling at his cloths. You know, the winding thing. I don't know if they had buried him in a cloth. I just imagined probably they did, like in the Bible. And that's what I saw, over and over. And Milton, laughing. Why did Milton have motives? Would Milton have had any reason to kill David? Not a reason that would have mattered to any civilized person. But the two of them didn't care for one another. Milton was always hanging around Rachel and prying into people's business. And I'd rather not put it beyond him to kill David out of malice. For a moment, no one speaks. I've not forgiven Rachel for going to dig up David without me. If she'd given me the word, I'd have been there with a shovel. Let's silently guess that Phoebe has feelings for David, even though she told me. Aha! I see. It's not such a lot to ask, is it? To want to be there when the head of my household, my employer, comes back to the land of the living. Or, at the very least, to be woken up when they bring him home. What did happen? I didn't come to know of David Landau's recovery from death till I went to serve Miss Landau's breakfast. And there he was, sat on the end of her bed, like a wandering ghost. If I'd fainted dead away, it would have been no less than they deserved. We talk about her current preoccupations. I feel like now is not the time to flirt with Phoebe. Phoebe gives me another lecture in the care and feeding of Landaus. But it is also, though obliquely, a portrait of herself, if only by difference. I like to eat supper late. She prefers a bowl of soup by the fire, and peace. They signal their fits of melancholy through this or that subtle indication. Phoebe is not prone to this kind of sadness, but she has flashes of anger, so hot and sudden that that is no harbinger. I am learning her, but it is a slow and forensic pursuit. There's laundry waiting, and the bats won't do it. My opinion remains to be seen about Phoebe, I feel. I shake my head to clear it. The ruminations are gone. All is as it was. It's time to run another errand. Here we go. Asked David to stay below and loved David. I think those are the two things we actually need. Let's see. Go here. So, motive. Loved David. Phoebe fell in love with David Landau. Milton did not think as humans do. That seems fair. Action. Asked David to stay below. Phoebe feared David would go back to the surface, leaving her behind or otherwise ending the relationship. Milton explained that murder in the Neath need not be a permanent affair. Then Phoebe made an honest mistake. Through no fault of her own, she poisoned David by burning arsenic-laced candles in his room. In fact, the candles had been burning there for some time, but in numbers too small to cause lasting harm. But when Phoebe turned her mind to it, she brought in candelabras full of them. Milton wanted the murder to succeed. Milton lied about everything. Did he lie about everything? What are my other options there? Pretended not to know, mourned, lied about everything. I mean, honestly, lied about everything's the best we've got so far. So let's save that. Let's go speak to Harjit. See if we can save our friend Archie here. Let's head outside. Thrall Street is where he hangs out and present my theory of murder to Harjit. Hello, my friend. I can mention the arrival of surface imports. Ooh, how lovely. I recount the newspaper story. Wealthy patrons have received their first orders of goods from the surface, including a lot of crickets or farming. I play to the comedy of it. I don't know what to make of that. Should we talk up our lost traditions? Should we be the stuffy traditionalist? Let's go with it. Up there, we had a settled way of doing things. Traditions. Institutions. We're lost without those. It's another kind of dark. Harjit hears me out, but it's plain this question doesn't matter as much to him as to me. Yes, because he cares not for the traditions of London. Don't mind me. Harjit digresses into an anecdote about a house that had caught fire, and all the children who had come out to have warmed themselves by the blaze. This is my theory. I believe I know what happened and why. And you're sure about this? Whatever you tell me now, I have to act on. Anyone you name will be brought in as part of the trial. And I won't be able to help if you decide you had it wrong. Oh, really? No, I'm sure it's fine. Should I just hand it in? You know what? I am very sure that I am right, or I'm at least very close. We know that Phoebe is the reason David died. Whether it was on purpose or an accident is just semantics. So let's... Now, is this going to make the trial happen? That's another thing I don't actually know. Is this going to skip a load of days? I don't know. Let's do it. See what happens. I'm sure. I lay out the whole story as I've reconstructed it, complete with means and motives. I see. Can we bring the denizens of hell into our courthouse? I doubt our jurisdiction, but the evidence should be heard. It may go harder with Phoebe than with Milton. Get a good night's sleep. Do whatever else you mean to do. Tomorrow the case will be heard. Oh god, have I just skipped loads of days? Whoops. Oh dear. Well, you know, that's not good. It's getting late, so I'm heading back home. Go straight to the table. I cannot come along to the trial. If you can't bring Archie home afterwards, well, come and tell me immediately. I want to send him something in prison for his last meal. If it is his last meal. Oh, I'll need the strength for the morning. Dinner is a very quiet affair from there. Go straight to sleep. Okay, so we still have 8 days remaining. It's not like it's skipped to the end of Yule. It's just pulled the the court case sooner. Maybe I should take off the rat for court. I don't know. Do you reckon the rat's really good in the courtroom? I mean, look at him. He looks like a lawyer. I'll change my clothes. Should I wear a wig and be like, I'm not who you think I am? You know what? We're gonna leave the rat on my head. Why not? It'd be funny. We keep on the badge because it gives us an air of authority, and then torso. What do we have? Let's go with the black coat. I like the black coat. Let's go with the black coat. I'm sure I don't know how it'd help me in the courtroom, but that'll do. Quiet. Quiet. Order. Sit down. I am unhappily aware that most of you have forgotten how to conduct yourselves in a courtroom. If in fact you ever knew. For those of you new to Her Majesty's justice, you find yourselves in the freshly repaired Old Bailey. Apparently, we're to count ourselves fortunate that it is in good enough condition for us even to meet here. Do you think this is the same judge that we had in that exceptional story with the songs? We ended up down on the docks. If you haven't seen that, you should definitely go and see that. I can't remember the name of it though, which is kind of embarrassing. Oh my. I was like, I'll go to my playlist and see what the name of that exceptional story was. There are so many videos on this playlist. Oh my. It took me a while to get to the end of it. It was called The Stolen Song, which makes a whole lot of sense since I was just talking about a stolen song. It's very good. Involves a courtroom. Very fun. We are gathered here to try Mr. Archibald Reed, Miss Phoebe Riley, and Mr. Milton on the charge of murdering Mr. David Landau. Should we consider the mood of the jury, or should we glance at one of the people? Let's consider the mood of the jury. How are they holding up? The jury looks, just at the moment, inclined towards the prosecution. Nothing has happened. That's called prejudice. We also find ourselves able to welcome the murder victim among us. He is unusually hale for one in his position. Mr. Landau, if you would. We will rely on him for evidence to lend a certain moral tone to the proceedings. I have often found that a murder trial devolves into chaos and a carnival atmosphere. But I am certain all that was formerly lacking was the presence of the victim. Mr. Landau, if you could look a bit more martyred, that would be ideal. We must now turn matters over to our prosecuting barrister. A small correction, my lord. Though Mr. Reed is required to be present due to his original arrest, the prosecution has concluded that the fault lies elsewhere, and Mr. Reed was not, as we first thought, a co-conspirator. I see. Members of the jury, please consider that Mr. Archibald Reed is innocent in this matter. Oh wow, Jesus, okay. That was quick. David looks as though it is a social embarrassment to be found alive after his murder. The barrister makes David recount the tale of his death so far. It's much as I've heard before. Laying out the question of opportunities and visits to the deceased's bedchamber. Let's pay close attention. The critical question appears to be, Mr. Landau, who had the opportunity to poison you? You were ill and were alone most of the day before you died. I was. But you saw a few people. My housekeeper, Phoebe Riley, came to see the candles, and Mr. Reed, who was attending me as a doctor. Mr. Reed came and gave me a dose of medicine. Was it the first time Mr. Reed attended you? No, he had been treating me for some days. But you had not recovered. Not entirely, but his treatments had reduced my pain. I'm going to maintain a steady and respectful silence. We are in a court of law. I do not stir in my seat. The others in the room share the same solemn excitement. And those were the only people who entered your room? Yes. My sister was in the house, though I think she did not come into my room. I sometimes could hear voices outside. I believe her friend, Mr. Milton, was present that day, and perhaps also her dressmaker, Ivy Fitzclarret. And none of them sent you messages, gifts, or food, perhaps carried to you by your housekeeper? No. In fact, you and Milton were not on friendly terms. I distrusted his reasons for visiting my sister. And he was aware of your disapproval? Rachel was aware of it. She may have told him. So he may have regarded you as an impediment to plans of his own, or simply disliked you as heartily as you disliked him. It's possible. Thank you, Mr. Landau. Miss Rachel Landau. My brother died in October, a few weeks from Yom Kippur. He had been suffering considerably from pain in the stomach, and he had been receiving treatment from Dr. Reed. Blakeo's attention. When you say Dr. Reed, Miss Landau... I beg your pardon. Mr. Reed is not a physician, but he was in training. Very good. Continue. On the day of his death, only 2 people went into David's room. One was Phoebe, to light candles so that he could see his books and distract himself a little. The other was Mr. Reed, who administered a drug to him and departed. No more than a few minutes after Mr. Reed left, Phoebe and I heard a crashing from David's room. We went inside and found he had undergone convulsions and fallen from bed. I'm going to watch without judgment. I observe, do not commit myself to any particular view. And these candles, were they brought at the market? Phoebe made them herself. What did she put into them? Do you know? I hope there is a purpose to these household hints in the courtroom. The barrister hesitates. We encourage the barrister with a fierce grin. Let's go with a tiny nod, actually. A tiny nod's much better. I give the barrister the tiniest nod. Miss Landau, do you know what was in the candles? I didn't inquire. Beeswax hasn't been plentiful lately. Did you know, Miss Landau, that candles made with arsenic burn exceptionally well? No. No, I only learned this recently myself. Let's see whether Miss Riley was aware of it. Miss Riley, you've heard Miss Landau's account of your employer's death. Is it correct? I suppose so, so far as it goes. So you went into Mr. Landau's bedroom on the day he died? There wasn't any scandal in that. We keep a respectable house, and it needs cleaning. Besides, I look after the Landaus whenever they're sick, brother and sister, till it gets so bad they need a doctor. But you lit candles of your own making. They contained arsenic in the recipe. Did they not? They did, but there's nothing in that. It makes them burn brighter. I'm going to maintain a steady and respectful silence. I keep still, as before. I put it to you that you were angry with your employer, and that Milton encouraged your anger. I wasn't angry with him. I put it to you that you saw an opportunity to kill David Landau through an atmospheric method that would go unnoticed. I put it to you that you made the candles more poisonous over time. I didn't change the recipe of the candles, no. I made them the same way every time. Or burn them in excess. Did you fill David Landau's bedroom with extra candles? I bought him enough to read by, as he asked. Thank you, Miss Riley. I would also like to remind the jury of what we have already heard from the formerly deceased. A number of people were in the Landau's townhouse on the day of his death, including Milton, the personage of hellish origin. You may just say devil. It seemed impolite. I believe it would be impolite to call him a demon, as those are creatures of quite a different genus. But I take my knowledge of devilish etiquette from the pages of the unexpurged Gazette. It may be imperfect. At any rate, this devil appears to have been a regular visitor. I call to the stand Reverend Theophilus Withenwick. Mr. Withenwick, I understand you have some expertise in devils. Yes. Do you believe a devil might tempt someone to behave as they otherwise would not? No. No. The faults in our souls are our own. A devil can at most bring out what is already latent within. But might a devil encourage, say, a young woman to commit an act of violence? He might. But if she did such an act, it would still be her sin. In this matter, the law is perhaps more forgiving than the church. Members of the jury, you must consider whether Milton was an accomplice to Miss Riley, or a co-conspirator. The state of Miss Riley's soul is for other authorities than ourselves. If in fact she still possesses a soul. Thank you, Reverend Withenwick. We have heard the argument of the prosecution. We will now hear from the defense. Members of the jury, I have behaved as I behaved from the motives of hell, which I do not expect you to comprehend. But I will explain myself, and then I will engage a human to interpret for you what I have done. David Landau died by the fumes of some arsenical candles. Phoebe Riley, you made the candles following a household hint for candles that would burn brighter and more cheaply. Yes. You had initially no idea that they might make anyone ill. And, in fact, the Landau household all used the candles for a long time. Yes. During that time, David Landau fell subject to headaches and digestive ailments. Did you think that might be to do with the candles? Not till you pointed it out to me. There are all sorts of sicknesses down here. Now, some time later, I became familiar with the household and observed its peculiarities. In particular, I noticed that Miss Riley was deeply unhappy, weren't you? I suppose so. You were in love with your employer, and you'd had some hopes he reciprocated. but it became clear that his interest in you had been temporary. Yes. And then, Miss Riley, you happened to confide in me when you were worried David Landau might return to the surface. You seem like you wouldn't tell anyone. No, and I didn't tell anyone, Miss Riley, until now. But we have reached a point where frankness might spare your neck. Do you remember what I said to you then? You said that if David, so to speak, died in a harmless way, it wouldn't last long and he'd come back spry and well again. With nothing wrong with him except he'd been cured of wanting the surface. Ah, you were truthful up to that last moment, Phoebe. Gotta try again. With nothing wrong with him except, well, that he couldn't go back to the surface. I suppose you didn't say he'd stop wanting to. No, I didn't say that. But we all of us want things now and then that we can't have. Maintain that steady and respectful silence. I keep still, as before. Phoebe, you thought you would be guaranteed Mr. Landau's presence. And I suspected that the experience of death might have a clarifying effect on Mr. Landau's indecisive ethical mechanisms. I may have overestimated his capacity for the revitalization that death affords. But I observed that he wished and intended to do well, and gave himself great pain guessing to a moral course. And yet the result was an obnoxious indecision that troubled himself and everyone around him. He desired and in some sense loved his housekeeper. He knew he had transgressed his own code in seducing her. If he had only had to face social disapproval, including, most powerfully, that of his sister, he might have gone ahead. Let's check Rachel's reaction. Rachel's cheeks are flaming red, and she is watching Milton with a thunderous expression. But he also knew that he and Miss Riley are unequally matched, not only in class and religion, in education and position, but in the deeper resources of character. Oh, thank you kindly. David Landau entirely lacked the wellspring of hope that lives in Miss Riley. He knew that he might not be content with her as a wife. He told himself that meant she would not be happy with him as a husband. He was almost certainly wrong. Phoebe's affection and her capacity for contentment are greater than Mr. Landau can easily imagine. It would not have insulted her if he'd gone on consulting his sister rather than his wife in matters of business. It would not have dented her joy if, as a family, they had avoided any social gatherings where they might be snubbed. He might have had a flicker of doubt if he had asked her to convert from her own faith to his. No, I wouldn't have cared. I'd have done that for him, even that. There's Ruth in the Bible, isn't there? God doesn't think ill of those who take up the faith of their family. Though I asked Rachel once, not saying why, but just inquiring if there was a like thing to baptism for becoming Jewish. You said they don't much look to have converts, as a rule. I'd have done it, though, if he'd asked me. But you've ruined that for certain now. He'll not love me that I killed him. How could he? Let's show support to Phoebe here, I think. And nod to Phoebe encouragingly. That remains to be seen, but let us stick to the matter of the case. Phoebe decided to kill her employer. Slightly, impermanently, and with the greatest affection. You didn't tell me how it would feel. No one could have told you that. In any case, members of the jury, you should also know that Phoebe did not have the means to kill, even with her candles. They were too weak. They burned too fast. They did not give enough poisonous fumes. That is where I provided some assistance. Wait, what? Hang on. I know a sigil that written in the wax of a candle will prolong its burning and strengthen its fire. I so inscribed all the candles meant for David Landau's bedroom. Wait, so Milton killed him? Oh my god. This is going all over the place. Maintain a steady and respectful silence. I do not stir in my seat. The others in the room share the same solemn excitement. Were you surprised when David died, Phoebe? I was a bit. I didn't think it would work. I don't think I could have done it if I did think it would work, to tell the truth. Then I thought he'd come back right away, which he didn't. Thank you, Phoebe. For my part, I was alarmed that the family buried Mr. Landau so quickly. I was aware of the burial custom, but I also knew that dreams were coming to Londoners, warning them of the danger of premature burial. I therefore disinterred Mr. Landau and put him in a safe place to await his return. Mr. Landau, if you would. Where did you return to life, Mr. Landau? I was on a bench, in a mausoleum building, adjoining the graveyard. Did you not wonder how you got there? I wondered about everything. That question was the very smallest of the mysteries. And if I meant to be grateful after you killed me in the first place? No, I still don't expect you to understand what I've done for you. Never mind, Mr. Landau. As for Mr. Landau's grave, I knew there was some chance of his family would revisit it. Disinterring people had become faddish in London as the dreams against burial spread. So I had placed in his grave a simulacrum grown in the swamps of the Lillimire, a false David to pacify anyone who looked for him. It will have decayed by now. Whatever your reasoning, you appear to have confessed to every matter in consideration. I have admitted to being the cause of these events, but neither the mens rea nor the actus reus was present for the murder. I did not kill David Landau in permanent fashion, nor did I intend to. Assault, then. Refinement, education for devils. To die and be reborn is a sacred and consequential thing. I no more assaulted David Landau than a surgeon would have done operating on a diseased limb. I keep still, as before. Phoebe Riley had reason to be vexed with me. I treated her as no housekeeper should have been treated, and afterward I expected her to resume her duties in an ordinary way. I disturbed the structure of our household, and I did not restore it to its proper form. Do you mean to imply, Mr. Landau, that Miss Riley would have been justified in murdering you? I mean to imply that her situation was untenable. And mine as well, if I am truthful. Members of the jury, you have heard the argument. An extraordinary argument, but an argument nonetheless. And now you must make a judgment. Was a murder done here? Was it only an accident? Or has the prosecution entirely failed to make its case? If you cannot convict beyond a reasonable doubt, then you must not convict at all. It is a very long time before they come back, and an antagonizing time. Finally, the court returns. The jury proclaims Archie to be not guilty. But as to Phoebe and Milton, they are both found guilty, and of deliberate murder. Phoebe Riley and Milton, it is now my duty to sentence you. You have been found guilty of murder, a crime that carries the punishment of death by hanging. Ah, I thank you for the kind invitation, but I will decline. The method you propose would not in fact end my life. Imagine the scene. Me, hanged, but still chattering with the passers-by. A social solecism unworthy either of us. I'm sure you would agree. I did not put your sentence to you as a request. My lord, you cannot require anything of a devil. It has been put to me that I should consider the survival of your victim as mitigation and regard your act instead in light of an assault. I do not, however, accept this argument. Phoebe Riley, you are sentenced to hang by the neck until dead. Once this sentence has been performed, your life thereafter is your own. I knew it would have to be. But it's no worse than going on as is, maybe. After I'm dead, I'll put a line under it. Miss Riley, I cannot advise you on that. I can mete out punishment, but not forgiveness. I suggest you confer with a priest. Oh, there's none has time for me. But never mind. I know what he'd say. I cannot quite believe it. I'm free of the ungulate. Not to be executed. Not to have my good name turned into mud. I can't thank you enough, my lord. I'm going to pride myself on seeing justice done. The true culprit has her punishment. It's as it should be. Aye, the Landaus must sleep easier, not having a murderess in the midst of them. And I am free to go. I could even return to the surface and look for my family again. Point out the triumph of his work down here? Let's do that. Down here, your Theorak of Mythendrates worked. You can learn new things on doctoring that you never knew. Perhaps David Landau will get his transport working after all, and give me a ride to the surface. Phoebe is hanged in the morning. Once, the hangman would have dispatched her quietly inside of Newgate Prison. Newgate no longer stands, however, and the case has attracted some attention as the first murder trial held in the Neath. Instead, she is put to death at Hangman's Arch. Go speak to Rachel. I did not go. Who would attend something like that? It's bad enough that it must happen. I thought of Phoebe as one of us. Let's comfort Rachel. No one could expect such a thing. I knew she wasn't quite like us, of course. But that she would turn against us? And I think what a source of strength she seemed to be at the inquest. Rachel, stop. You understand what happened. We both understand. There's no purpose on pretending otherwise. What happened? It's sordid, beneath us. We aren't the sort of people. How respectable you are suddenly. Never mind what sort we are. Only what we've done, and what we are going to do next. We can't help Phoebe now. What if she can't get back from the boat? She'll get back, Phoebe. Of all people. Just let her laugh one time, and the boatman will know he cannot hold her. It's a loud laugh. Very loud. Unrefined. The best laugh I've ever heard. Life is quieter after the trial, at least for a time. Christmas Day comes and goes. Pale flakes fall across London. They aren't exactly snow. Grizz's work at the ministry becomes more intense, more demanding. And soon, we are coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the fall. 1 year since February. Doesn't feel right to call this month February again. Oh, maybe it does skip to the end of the to the end of winter. Whoops, my bad. Okay, well, I'm sure we could still do some of the things we have. Phoebe's death lasts perhaps a little longer than David's. When it is over, she comes to see us. I've come to ask for a place in this lodging house. I suppose your employers turned you off. I gave notice. And I don't suppose they gave you a reference. I'm gonna hear her out. I assume Phoebe has a reason for coming to us. You weren't at the trial, Miss Chapman. I wasn't there. That doesn't mean I don't know what happened. My lodgers speak to me. I take a newspaper. I have neighbours. I have cat friends who've come and whispered to me about what you did. You don't want me here, I understand. It is a house for outcasts. I am gonna let her stay. She needs a place. I don't think she'll be making any new candles. Raisha hesitates. I wish I could help. I see how it is. Where will you go? I don't know. This place is for less respectable women, though. I hope somewhere does choose to help you. From Christian charity. But it can't be here. Not everything that needs doing is down to me doing it. Oh, I'm kind of surprised. Okay, so I accidentally skipped all of y'all. That wasn't intentional. I don't know what quests I have left. We still have all of our quests and stuff. Okay, so it's not the end of the world. We haven't like skipped over any of our quests. But I'm going to end this episode here because it was huge. The whole trial. That went on longer than I expected. But either way, thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. And as always, we'll see you next time.